Hello, everyone. We are back with APIM Hotrod. This is the first episode of the season 2. Hello, Stefan. How are you?
Hey, Massimo. Fine, and you?
I'm great. Just back after summer holidays, so I'm full of energy and ready to go with this. With the second half of the year
Full of beans.
and our show.
Great. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Okay, so this season 2 is called Azure Architects Road Trip. So we will go and I will explore different islands, different topics, and different areas that an Azure architect should, let's say, go through throughout their own career. But on the other hand, I would like to first just do one step back, not just jump into the technicalities and understand, who is this Azure architect? Because Azure is a cloud in general, is a broad topic. There are different kind of architects, and Azure architect might be seen generic, right? So what do you think?
No, that's true. So anyway, I would say the notion, the notion itself of an architect can also sometimes vary from one company to another, right? So meaning, I don't know, solution architect might be like not too technical in some companies, a bit more technical in others. Some companies have more like technology in their DNA, so they expect solution architect to be already more, to be more familiar with some technologies and so on. So it's indeed kind of blurry. There is no like a strict definition of what an architect is. But I think that when we apply Azure into the mix, then it becomes automatically kind of a specialized architect already, right? And so for me, so if we talk about, for instance, the enterprise architects, right? In many companies, you have an enterprise architecture shop. Typically, they don't know Azure. They don't need to know Azure, right? It's not their role. It's kind of more the broader landscape, close relationship with the business, trying to make sure that the IT initiatives are in line with the business strategy and so on. So that's kind of the role of an enterprise architect, which is, it does not need to be, knowledgeable in technologies, and certainly not specific skills, right?
Yeah, and just like because you make me think that sometimes, and I would like to know your opinion. This, as you were saying, this definition also changes depending on the size of the company, right? So smaller you are, more you are an enterprise architect, but you need to have a technical requirement.
It's funny to see in a startup, it's unlikely that you will have an enterprise architect, but indeed in a small company, small medium business, indeed the enterprise architect might even should still have some technical skills. But I think it's really in the small groups, because in large companies, to be honest, they're really more overseeing the landscape of the company, and again the business strategy, IT strategy. That's more the role of an enterprise architect. Define standards, for instance, right? Okay, what can we use? And we typically, and often they also use frameworks like TOGAF, right? So really the methodology to basically run their enterprise architecture practice. So for me, if you talk to Azure, we can forget about enterprise architecture. Of course, they are in touch. They know that this is used in the company, but it's not the go-to person when you have a question on Azure, right? So for me, it's clear, and the enterprise architect does not need to have these skills. But then the next in line is a solution architect, and that's where I see the most variation from companies to companies, because in some companies they already expect a solution architect to be kind of mastering the end-to-end aspects of a solution, right? So a little bit about the application itself, what is the application doing, if we talk about a custom developed application, but also knowing the big infrastructure building blocks, you see the security aspects. So kind of, being the let's say accountable for the entire solution end-to-end. And if we put Azure onto this, what is an Azure solution architect? Then for me, that's what I expect, that the Azure solution architect has enough skills in multiple disciplines to understand the solution in its entirety, right?
So it's the classic T-shape. So they have this horizontal view on all the classic building blocks, from infrastructure to security to application and so on. and then normally everybody has a sort of section, right? That is the vertical part of the T, right?
Indeed. But if you see in big companies again, what you also often see is basically solution architects that are not so T-shaped, that understand, let's say, that deal with what is called ABBs, application building blocks and solution building blocks, so still high level, right? Also know a bit what is being used in the company and so on, and not specifically knowledgeable in Azure or specific technologies. You see, so again, that depends. But if you put, of course, Azure solution architect, then you expect this solution architect, then for me, at least, that's my expectation, that the solution architect should master.
So it seems that Azure is an attribute that once you attach to the solution architect, it just brings him or her really down to the technicalities, right? From
Indeed. Of course, because otherwise, okay, for me, I see an Azure solution architect as kind of a go-to person, right? So where, okay, any question you have on Azure, you should at least know a bit, not know all the verticals by heart, it's just impossible, but at least understand what we're talking about. And then you have the more vertical architects where it's really clear. So like infrastructure, Azure infrastructure architect, it's clear. Okay, today in on modern landscape, it means that this infrastructure architect should master, let's say, of course, all the IaaS, right? Infrastructure as a service model, so VMs, VM scale sets, databases, and so on. But also all the PaaS, right? Or at least the compute part, right? What are our service plans? How do we scale that? How do you monitor this? That's a bit, for me, what an infrastructure architect should know in Azure.
But I have a question for you.
Sorry.
These days, do you still see those infrastructure architects, or those infrastructure architects somehow migrated or are migrating towards something called more, let's say, platform, where you have infrastructure plus something else to support applications?
Yeah, indeed. Platform, indeed, as a platform architect somehow introduced the notion of service as well around, so that you build a platform that is really customer centric, that is proactive, right? That is delivering services to really empower application teams to deliver more, faster, and so on. That's indeed kind of an evolution, but mostly for the cloud, because you can still see on-premises classical infrastructure teams that did not especially evolve to, let's say, to a platform mindset. But indeed, no, in the cloud, that's more the platform architect somehow is the successor of the infrastructure architect. So if you want to be modern enough, that's indeed more.
Where I also met a lot of people that in the past were mainly on-premises infrastructure, and they migrated towards the supporting Kubernetes thing. So in a very successful way. So it's but not only from the product per se, but all the services around the product.
Of course.
This kind of stuff.
And of course, still one thing that every infrastructure or platform architect should know in Azure is the networking, right? Because today it really plays a big role, right? Every solution, being data solution, being custom application, and so on, we at least have typically the hub and spoke in the simplest form, or we could have more complex forms, right? With multi-hub architectures and so on. So knowing your way in Azure networking, I think today it's kind of a must. Okay, while 8 years ago, okay, it was all PaaS first, all public cloud. I mean, even from Microsoft, I think that has changed. So where it's kind of use private endpoints for everything. Isolate everything from internet, control your ingress channels, egress channels, and so on. So somehow it's not the cloud or the Azure cloud, let's say, as we could see it 10 years ago. Okay.
Then you put,
companies, it's not only on the
cloud. Then you put also the connectivity to on-premises in the mixer, all the DNS plus cloud.
Indeed. So you still need to know your way, even in, because let's make no mistake, networking and DNS remains foundational, right? I mean, indeed, a good Azure infrastructure architect or platform architect needs still to know his bits in DNS and so on, because if you don't have this working well, and we can say that with private link and so on, not always the easier thing to understand. So we have some complexities as well specific to Azure. Then you need to have people still knowledgeable in that, right? Even though it's purely foundational, but if the foundations don't work well, then nothing will work. So that's for sure. So that's, let's say, one of the verticals. infra. Then, of course, you have data, which is an entire world, of course, by itself. If you just take Databricks, for instance, that was one of the topics of this morning for me with a customer. Yeah, I'm not the Databricks architect, right? So, I mean, it's a universe within within Azure, and so of course each data service like signups and so on. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to know. I think that a cloud architect, if you would say, to try to link a bit, cloud architect should at least know the architectures that are linked to, for instance, data domain. Not especially, of course, to know how you write a notebook in Python or whatsoever, you see, but more, okay, how do you connect the dots? How do you split your data? Islands, are they, let's say, merged together? And if they are split, do they need to communicate? How do you establish it? See, this is more, I think, where the cloud architect could still, of course, bring value to the mix and support the data architects, basically.
So classic cloud, architecture patterns like, I don't know, Lambda architecture, Kappa architecture, these kind of things, Medallion, exactly. So all of these kind of things, and also like which kind of use cases like big data platform like Databricks and things like this, they can solve the kind of data, how they work.
And that's also challenging in Azure because you have a lot of data services. So somehow you can use all of them at the same time. But then, okay, it's not going to be so easy. Yeah? So if you use Databricks, signups, or Data Factory, that's kind of a given. But you see, there is an overlap as well between those services. So what is the best choice for a Lambda architecture or for Medallion or whatever? Yeah,
but it's the same for general compute, right? So every architect always asks to Microsoft, okay, when should we choose which kind of service is the best for our customer? There is, also for compute, right? For hosting classic web workload, you have a lot of ways to do, like from container apps, functions, ACI. So there are tons of things, right? Indeed. It's this decision tree depending on the customer needs plus the feature that the cloud provides is always one of the most important jobs, right? It would be in the perfect world, every service has, provide the same functionality, and then there will be a transparent, let's say, move of a workload from A to B. But that's today an illusion, right?
Yeah. I think it's not easy, but I think that's also why it's maybe good to indeed try to not all use data services at the same time, right? Because then at least you can make smart choices. And sometimes it's also driven by what you use on-prem. You see, so by the background you have, are you Microsoft shop on-prem, then you're likely to go first for signups and so on. Are you like a Spark shop on-prem, then you're likely to go to Databricks. You see that, although you can also use a signups, but you see, it really depends a bit on the background you have as well as a company, and then the DNA, let's say.
Also the maturity of the people that you have, the kind of knowledge, as you were saying, and so on. So we have a lot of all of these different architects, and then when those architects put themselves the blue hat, so the Azure hat. So it's those kind of architects will be the focus of our journey. So you talk about data architecture. We will talk about the solution architecture. Security, infrastructure, AI, a big things these days that is evolving so fast and changing so fast, and also application architecture, right? So for us, this Azure architects road trip, it will be a road trip for different kind of architecture in different discipline. Or if you want a solution architect that is more T-shape, so he needs to find his own way on that horizontal land. Does it make sense as a sort of a recap?
Yeah, indeed. I think that's indeed how we can see it. And then, indeed, I think our episodes will then indeed be targeting those personas that we have spoken about just now. And so try to see a bit what is their journey, what they should know, basically, right? And then of course we'll talk about the contents, because here it's still kind of a post-introduction episode. But then, okay, next time we start to speak about contents, and we have guests as well at some point.
Sorry, next time we start with what?
But we'll start to talk about contents, right? So kind of substantial topics. Let's say really dive into one of the personas. Yeah.
And as we said, we will start using your maps, your very famous map, to help this architect to navigate on that specific area. So the next episode will be which one? Which kind of persona are we going to look at?
Solution architecture, right? I think that's the one.
Architecture. Yeah. Yes. So the first step, so how to approach the solutions. So how do you design cloud solutions and so on.
Yeah, indeed. And then we'll dive into verticals.
Sounds very exciting. So I think that we can close this first episode today, where we saw those different personas, how they could change in different enterprise scenarios in different companies, and one by one we will have this journey with them, with external guests, starting from the next episode, and we will have fun with them.
Yeah, hopefully. So good. Thanks, Massimo.
Thank you, Stefan.
We'll be back soon.
Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode, and see you next time.